feel like nitric oxide is, the articles about the Wizard of Oz. And I feel like it is the bridge, it's the yellow brick road to get us to medicine. Because in the operatory, how do we in 60 minutes change someone's life? The neat thing about the nitrates is you're able to really counteract and counterbalance the microbiome in a way you can cause a shift towards health. So just by that maybe extra salad during lunch, you're able to fuel these healthy commensals. You can increase them. In the hygiene room, in the operatory, we really do as individuals have many different opportunities to intervene. And it can be a small, like we talk about, like to move a mountain. You can't move it at once. You've got to go bucket by bucket. But you do not know if that one bucket, that one day you say that one thing to that one patient, if that really could be the bucket that stops someone from having a heart attack or a stroke.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists, an Endeavor Business Media production. This is episode number 401. I'm your host, Andrew Johnston, and thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. In this episode, you will get the amazing opportunity to listen to, well, you listen to me sound really dumb. That's the long and short of it. And probably more dumb than usual. Dumber than usual? Oh, I don't even know how to say that. About a topic in which I am totally out of my depth, which is always nerve-wracking for me. But we have on Holly Moons, and she's going to take us through kind of the basics of understanding nitric oxide and its role in keeping us alive and healthy. We talk a little bit about how it's produced in the body, things we can do for ourselves, or maybe we're coaching our patients on to increase their nitric oxide production. It's a really good It's a really good episode. Holly is crazy smart, and I expect, I'm not 100% sure, but I really liked her, and I think that you'll be hearing from her again on future episodes. If you love this episode, please reach out to her, let her know, tell her that you think that she's amazing, give her lots of encouragement. I think one of the things that we could really do for our up and coming speakers and lecturers and educators and all of that is to show them that they matter, right? So it gives them that additional confidence, or it gives them the drive to keep working at their craft. I would love for you to reach out to her and let her know how amazing she is. And then next week, we have a little swaparoo where there's a longer format of Fast Facts, like a longer version of the Perio edition that Katrina Sanders always does. And it's going to be aired on the Wednesday slot. So Katrina is on this episode with her sister, Dr. Elizabeth Sanders, who I believe is a podiatrist, if I'm remembering correctly. It was a good episode. It's kind of shorter than our normal episodes, but longer than a Fast Fact. And so I wanted to give it the space that it needed. And I thought, hey, a Wednesday episode sounds really good. So make sure that you tune in for that. Also, if you want to hear more from Katrina, let me know. I would love to get her on the show a little bit more often than just Fast Facts, but I want to hear some feedback on that. Andrew at A Tale of Two Hygienist, if you agree. I am excited to tell you also that our website will be getting an overhaul very soon. It's long overdue. We did a kind of a mini overhaul recently, but this one's going to be a complete change. It's going to have the same functionality as before, but it's going to be a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more podcast focused. So if you could do me a favor, head over to ataleoftwohygienist.com, sign up for the newsletter now before we do the maintenance on the site. I know our web developer team is really amazing. I just want to make sure that if you wanted to read the newsletter, it comes out twice a month, that you're signed up and don't run into any potential delays or hitches as we do this changeover. So that's it for me for this week. Please enjoy the amazing Holly Moons.
A tale of two hygienists.
All right, everyone, welcome into the interview portion of the podcast. I am joined by Holly Likes Bourbon. I mean, Holly Moons. Holly, welcome to the show.
True. All true. Thank you for having me, Andrew.
Well,
it is a pleasure.
We were making a joke earlier about, I don't know if listeners are out there have to do a lot of those Zoom meetings or the Microsoft Teams meetings, but you can, do your fake background. And I had like this fake bourbon bottle back there, which is so uncharacteristic. If you know me, like I would never in a million years drink bourbon, but apparently you do. You like it. That's
You're the
good.
kale salad kinda guy.
I am.
We're gonna need that recipe later, by the way.
Seriously. Welcome to the show. You did Jackie Sanders' podcast, and Jackie connected us and said, "You know what, Andrew? Like if you want to have like the best guest in your whole entire like year, you got to have Holly on." And so, not to put too
Oh.
much pressure on you, but if this is not the best episode that we've ever had, you're in trouble.
Well, it's all the bourbon.
It's all the
So,
bourbon.
well, it's magic.
Tell the listeners your journey, because you kind of came out of nowhere for me. I'm sure you've been around for a little bit, but as we were kind of prepping for this episode, you had sent me a link and said, "Hey, here's an article that if you want to kind of look at it." And not only was it, first of all, very informative, but it was cleverly written. I thought that like your voice in it was like a professional. Like this is it's not your first time writing an article, so you must be coming from some sort of a background. Where are you coming from?
That was literally my first article that I
Really?
got published. Yeah, yeah. It came from the, RDH Evolution, and I was there in 2022 trying to find myself and wanted to write and met, Amber Auger and Jackie Sanders, and you had to journal what your goals were, and I really wanted to publish an article, and it actually came true. So, this writing things down and having it manifest, I think there's something to it. So,
Now,
I'm
did
beyond excited.
when you were going to RH Evolution, did you say, "Okay, this is my passion in life. This is what I want to focus on," or were you still? I think what a lot of us have done for several years is we have, I come from Washington State, so I'm like, I really love local anesthesia. I just want to dive into that, but then I just like, I'm a little bit bored, so I'm going to shift into this other aspect, and now I'm going to shift into this other aspect. Were you someone that was jumping around, or did you pretty much have like where you wanted to go with this?
Well, I felt like I have a lot of different ideas, different topics I wanted to write about, but at the same time, this one really hit close to home because COVID for me was 2 months at home alone while my husband went into work, and I started taking all the online classes,
Hmm.
quality classes. All the speakers were grounded, we weren't going anywhere, so we Zoomed together, and I started to take the airway classes and the whole underdeveloped jaw scenario and the way the lights start clicking and you think airway and how many downstream side effects happen because of just the jaw itself and
Hmm.
really thinking outside of the mouth, the way that the mouth affects the body. And nitric oxide kind of popped up for me out of nowhere, and I can't even imagine my life without it, and I feel like nitric oxide is, the articles about the Wizard of Oz, and I feel like it is the bridge, it's the yellow brick road to get us to medicine, because in the operatory, how do we in 60 minutes change someone's life or really do something oral systemic? How do we take on medicine?
Hmm.
And with this little molecule, because the second pathway to generate this is all about the bacteria in the mouth, I feel like we own this molecule to a degree, which has so many wonderful benefits for every organ in our body. So I thought this is really it for me. This is our quintessence, is this little molecule that could, so to speak.
I love it. So I think we probably have to start at the beginning, because nitric oxide was not on my radar and still is. It's one of those things that I had a few guests ago mention, like, "Hey, if you want me to come back, I'd love to talk about oxide with you." And I said,
Mhm.
"I'm sorry, but could you do even like a whole episode on that? That just seems like such a nothing of a nothing that I feel like I'm now so far in the dark." So do you mind just like dumbing it way down for me, starting from the beginning? What is it? Kind of like, why is it important? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So it's fairly new on the medical block, found in the 80s. And the scientists that discovered it, they realized it had a vasodilating property. And for us, some of the first research was the way that the endothelial cells in our blood vessels, the vessels in our body, they respond to the pressure of a constricted vessel, like a carotid artery. If the flow is increasing, there's blockage from platelets, it's like a kinked hose. Your body senses that. And this molecule is released from enzymes in that vessel to dilate. So it corrects that shrinkage, that vasoconstriction, which is amazing. It's also got properties in the brain in that it's in charge of neuronal conversation and communication, and then it's a part of our immune system. So the first pathway that generates nitric oxide, it's from enzymes in our body that break down L-arginine. And these three enzymes, there's NOS 1, 2, and 3. NOS is in nitric oxide synthases. You can call them neuronal NOS. That's the first one. That's in charge of the brain. So if you want to think about the scarecrow in the Wizard of Oz story being in charge of the brain. So neurons and the synaptic plasticity of our brain, memory, it controls the central and peripheral nervous systems, the way our mitochondria function, oxygen, the way that oxygen is delivered into the body. So big with the brain. The second NOS, or nitric oxide synthase, is inducible NOS, and this is in charge of our immune system. So it's going to be found in macrophages, neutrophils, and it's activated in the presence of cytokines or bacterial endotoxins. So our P. gingivalis, T. forsythia, Treponema demnicola, they start to come into contact with gram-negative bacteria, and this is triggered. Now, lastly, the endothelial nitric oxide synthase, that is in charge of our vascular system. So now we're talking about that dilation that happens. And that actually won a Nobel Prize in, I believe, 97 for the field of science and medicine over it. So it was a pretty big deal. So for those enzymes, they run that first pathway. Problem is, as we age and as we take on more systemic diseases, those enzymes don't function like they used to. They say by the time you're 40, we're about 50% underproduction. By the time you're 60, now we're down to 15%. So right when you need it most, 60 years old, we're starting to take on vascular issues. The molecule that is the most important to help us run our brain, immune system, and our vascular system, it's weakened. So cue the mouth and the body's most amazing way to have a backup system. So the backup system is called the nitrate, nitrite, nitric oxide pathway. So here we go. So nitrates, this is your kale salad recipe. So you eat your green leafy veggies, right? Full of nitrates. They absorb it through the soil. You eat the nitrates. You chew them, you swallow it. It goes into the digestive system. Most of it's lost, but 25% of it is actually put back into your bloodstream. So in the bloodstream, we've got our plasma, and it's the plasma that makes our saliva. So it gets recirculated back into the mouth through the salivary glands as now this nitrate. So it went from veggie to nitrate. So the bacteria living on the dorsal surface of your tongue in these little crypts, and you know they're those little fissures, these little commensal bacteria, that is their food. That's their fuel. So you are now feeding the Digimon, so to speak. Dating myself here.
It's a good reference.
You're giving them what they want. So they get to eat this glorious nitrate. So now they're eating the nitrate. They turn it into nitrite. You swallow it. So we've broken it down now again. So we don't have as humans the enzymes to break nitrate into nitrite. The bacteria do that for us. So it's a symbiotic relationship. We need them, they need us. So now they've broken it down into nitrite. We swallow the nitrite, and once it hits the acidity of our stomach, so now the stomach acid becomes very important. Then it turns into nitric oxide. And now it is going forth in the body to do what it needs to do. So we have control to titrate via diet, what you eat, and the things that we put in our body, the things that we do hygiene-wise, products we use, don't use. We have the way to intercede through nitric oxide in a person's life to make either really small changes, or if we're talking about a heart attack and stroke or dementia, a really big one.
But I feel like let's
Mhm.
play out a scenario because we both live in Florida, right? The patients here are
Mhm.
not young. And I feel
Mhm.
like, okay, you're getting, what'd you say it was 60 and they're all the way down
Right,
to
15%.
15%? Okay. So you said, okay, look, I need you to eat some kale. All right. This is going to be the,
Yes.
the end all be. I don't, is there ever hope of having enough bacteria in your mouth and ingesting enough kale to be able to get us back to a healthy level of nitric oxide?
I think so, because it won't take a lot of kale, green leafy veggies, nitrates. I mean, we're talking about maybe a salad a day making a difference. I think that there are a lot of different foods. You can go online and look at what foods are rich in nitrates. I feel like where that's not so much of an issue, I feel like the issue may be what we're doing to the bacteria in the mouth. And what I'm talking about is what we're using maybe mouthwash wise that can potentially wipe out the entire oral microbiome. So if the goal is 99% of all bacteria, we're taking out everything. And I think that's the neat shift now in hygiene is we're trying to go from how do we fight pathogens but yet leave healthy commensals behind to probiotics even like look at that as a topic of conversation is trying to repopulate the mouth with probiotics, healthy commensals that can help fight for resources from pathogenic bacteria. So I think in the mouth, this is a bigger issue because of the need to break it down.
This is, I don't want to say it's like it's kind of going against everything that we've ever talked about in dentistry for the last 30 years, but it kind of is in a way where we throw the baby out with the bathwater, as they say, right? Like you're saying, we need a super clean mouth. We need really get into all the nooks and crannies. We're going to have this X mouthwash that does 99.9% of all the bacteria is going to be, completely wiped out. But you're telling me though that this is opposite of what our bodies actually need. So
That's right.
how do we get our patients on board with this? Because this is going to be it's hard enough to get them coming for their perio maintenance because that they've heard it's 2 cleanings a year. That's good enough. I mean, how do you ever have that conversation and shift their mindset?
I think you have to give patients something really small and easy to do. And I think for me, something I never did before that I do now is I talk about their tongue a lot more, like the surface of the tongue and the coating of the tongue. And something that they can do that's really easy is tongue scraping. And there's a lot of science behind if you can clean your tongue. And this goes back thousands of years. Chinese medicine looking at the tongue as a way to present someone's overall health based on how it looks. If you can clean the tongue, then you're going to release those healthy commensals and allow them a better chance to take on the nitrates that you're eating. So if the tongue is coated, or for example, let's say you see the patient has dry mouth, that's something that you can say, "Okay, I see that you're dry. We're not gonna have a lot of circulating nitrates and nitrites in the mouth if they're dry. If we don't have saliva, it won't bring it there." So that's another small thing we can talk up to them about to try to influence the production of nitric oxide. So it's small changes that we can do for them in the chair, in the operatory, recognizing maybe via meds what they're taking. Like if someone's on a lot of proton pump inhibitors, acid reflux meds, we can say, okay, the acidity of their stomach is going to be different and we need it to be acidic. So now that we know you're on proton pump inhibitors and you can't get off of those, we know that we need to maybe supplement more ways to get nitric oxide. We know that that pathway may be reduced. So the neat thing about the nitrates is you're able to really counteract and counterbalance the microbiome in a way you can cause a shift towards health. So just by that maybe extra salad during lunch, you're able to fuel these healthy commensals. If you can increase them, then they're going to fight for resources. They're going to be there fighting perio disease. cavities, halitosis, etc. So it's shifting the microbiome to then be able to shift the patient's health towards their systems towards health.
This might be a question that you don't know the answer to, or maybe you do. You seem to know a lot about a lot. So, all right. So let's say, look, I never even thought about acidity of my patient's stomach impacting their,
Hmm.
or like, other than like having too much acid or acid reflux, or some of the very basic
Yeah.
things. So if they are having medications or whatever that increase the pH, so it's not quite so acidic, how do you get them to have a more acidic stomach? Like, it seems interesting that you'd want that.
It and it is, but I mean the acidity of the stomach, it's there to be able to take out bacteria. So the stomach acid is there for a reason. We're supposed to eat our food and it's supposed to protect us against pathogens that we're not supposed to have circulating in the body. So if we start to change the pH of the stomach acid, now we're really messing with the body's internal system.
Mm.
I don't think it's that you're going to be able to get someone off of certain meds, but it definitely is a clue or a cue to say, okay, I recognize you're on these particular meds. We need to start having a conversation about the mouth in general, the health of the bacteria, the sampling, so to speak. We need to talk about, hey, you might need to get more green leafies in your diet because you've got, heart disease, diabetes, and you're on proton pump inhibitors, acid reflux. So there are a lot, and you're dry. There are a lot of things that you're presenting with in the operatory because we take great notes. We go over someone's health history. We're taking blood pressure. So that's, a really good measure of the vascular system and the flow of blood pressure. We're able to say, okay, I see these things and I recognize because of that, we're going to need to make some changes. And diet, although it may be hard, it can be a small thing too for someone to not have to take a pill and go, hey, let's just change our diet, add a couple green things once in a while is actually really exciting. And there are really great supplements that you can take, lozenges, etc. That you have to really watch what you're doing here now because you need to really follow the science and find the right kind of product that will actually generate nitric oxide. But there are some really great people, scientists that do this. So if someone's not going to incorporate a better diet, they can supplement with lozenges, for example. So
Interesting.
something they can put in their mouth and make nitric oxide. It can be that easy.
Let's go back to probiotics.
Mhm.
Let's talk about that, the role that it plays, because I feel like right now we are seeing a huge increase in probiotic use. Obviously, some are better than others. But when you're talking to your patients, do you have a recommendation of, type, and not necessarily brand name, but like, the type, how much, what they're looking for?
This has been really cool. Exactly because what you just said. Like there's so many out on the market, and I feel like we're just in our infancy of trying to really like biohack bacteria, not to take out the pathogens, but leave the good ones behind. And what rinses do that, what rinses don't, what products. We're really trying to figure this out. And I think right now, what we can say is there are bacteria that are really good nitrate reducers, meaning they do well breaking down nitrate into nitrite.
Mhm.
There are also some bacteria that are sensitive to nitric oxide. Fusobacterium nucleatum, by the way, is really sensitive to nitric oxide. So if you're doing saliva tests and he's the last one there and you're like, you can't get him down, nitric oxide may be the way to do that. And if you can take out FN, you can definitely take out TF because TF depends on FN. That's a whole nother
I was
conversation.
gonna say this is
But
getting deep.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I would say for the probiotic aspect, a lot of times lactobacillus is one of those that you can find in probiotics
Mhm.
that is a great nitrate reducer. So really good at taking the food and changing it to nitric oxide. So if there was, at least right now, a bacteria that I would recommend, it would be one with a really good lactobacillus. And there are some out there that do have that. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's Lactobacillus rhamnosus, Rhamnosus. It sounds like a dinosaur, but that one in particular is a great nitric reducer. And there are probiotics that will have that in it.
All right, so okay, we let's get back to, we've nerded out a little bit with some fancy words and terms. hygienists are going to be like, okay, that's cute, but there's almost no way I can implement this into my daily practice. What do you say to that?
I say you can. I mean, just look at the tongue. Like, just I mean, one of my mentors, she actually told me to pick up my handpiece and polish someone's tongue. And I thought, "What? Okay, let's try this." So I found my first person, which is usually right out of the gate. There's someone they open up, "Let's check your tongue for cancer." Oh my gosh, it's coated, it's different looking. So I polished half of it off just quickly. I'm like, I'm gonna just, and they're used to me doing weird stuff. So let's just polish the tongue. And we did a side by side, and we were all grossed out and couldn't believe how much we could clean off. And that was the opener to a really great conversation about nitric oxide. So now we're talking about the bacteria, we're talking about things that they can do or avoid in their daily routine, watching out for certain mouthwashes, diet. We were used to talking about diet. We have to talk to people about, avoiding carbs and sugars, etc. So, staying away from acidic food. So that's not new to us. We've
Hmm.
got that in the bag.
Hmm.
So just, incorporating more nitrates, etc., raw food. But the side by side tongue is such a fun, weird conversation starter, and it really gets them awake. Like, what are you doing? I've never had this done before. And I tried missing it on one of my patients recently, and they called me out on it. They said, you did not polish my tongue. No, I'm sorry. Let me do that right now.
Yeah.
So it's just a conversation starter. Same with blood pressure. Blood pressure is a great conversation starter. If the blood pressure is elevated, we know, okay, vascular system, we've got issues with the vessels. And nitric oxide is that thing with the endothelial. Nitric oxide, we learned earlier, is the thing that dilates a vessel. So we can say, you know what, your blood pressure is elevated. There may be vascular issues. Let's talk about the mouth and the bacteria. Do we need to add a probiotic that's going to supplement those healthy commensals? Or do we need to, um, I don't know, just try out different scenarios that may mouthwashes. Do we need to take away a mouthwash? Do we need to add a mouthwash? I'm seeing more and more natural type mouthwashes that are out there product wise. So it's about us finding the right product for the patient.
When we talk about mouthwashes, I would assume that you have a list that we're not going to talk about on air, but there's obviously probably ones that are, but maybe not talking about the brand names, but what are the ingredients that we're looking for that we don't want, but also some of these natural ones, like why are they so much more beneficial than some of the more established ones?
I think it's when we start getting really chemically, if we're talking about antimicrobials, and I feel like it's the chronic use. Now that I'm talking about mouthwash with patients, I'm in perio, so I'm more geared towards proxy brushes and rubber tips. I don't really spend a lot of time on mouthwash, but until now, I didn't realize how much they're using it.
Hmm.
And some of them, when you say we need to cut back on some of the mouthwash use, they're really freaked out. You get a lot of looks like, you can't take away my mouthwash. And I didn't realize they were so dependent on it. And we can have that conversation about maybe not so much, maybe not so frequently, because there was a study where they tested a particular antimicrobial that's very popular, and it was 7 days, twice a day use, and blood pressure went up. They lost the healthy commensals, but once they stopped, healthy commensals came back, blood pressure went down. So this was just something that happened within 7 days, which was really interesting. It can happen quickly.
Hmm.
They can resupplement and get the mouth healthy quickly. But I think finding a product without so many chemicals, again, maybe not the goal to wipe everything out. Do we know what that is yet? I don't think so, because I think we need more studies that will say this particular chemical will wipe out these bacteria that we need, and here's your list. We don't have that yet. This is still so new, but it's a conversation starter.
I feel like I was told, I don't know. I don't know if this is true, 'cause sometimes you just are told like, hey, just sell a product in your chair and do the things. But they said, you're going to do this thing for 7 days and it's going to be incremental. So it'll completely wipe out all the bacteria, but then all the good ones are going to come back in a healthy population, but then the bad ones are going to struggle to come back because there won't be as many, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think that's the thinking anymore. And I think that that all of us kind of like listening to this podcast probably need to, if that was what we were told, like we need to reassess. because that's one of those legacy lies that we've been told for so long, for so many years. I think I've repeated that on this podcast, I think several times. And
Yeah.
now I feel like a jerk, but hopefully we learn from our mistakes.
Well, I think
Go ahead.
we've gone away from just moving plaque around in the mouth, which was that was the early days, the non-specific plaque hypothesis, towards specific. Now we know there's your Sokransky's, rainbow complex of bacteria, to keystone. Now that we know there's a few of them that do certain things, to this new eubiosis to dysbiosis. And it's taken it all of a sudden, all this has happened really quickly. Keystone to eubiosis, dysbiosis. And it's understanding that we have the red complex we do need to target in really unique ways. Do we have all the answers to do that? Not yet. We're trying. We're trying really hard. But then also be mindful of the healthy commensals and what role they play in the mouth. Because if you can really encourage them to thrive, then they are fighting for resources. And there are a lot of oral bacteria that are statistically shown to be in the presence of health. They do their own little unique song and dances in the mouth that we need them. We need them to be the Luke Skywalkers and the Baby Yodas. We do not want Darth Vader and stormtroopers taken over. We do not want that.
Is this your next article is now going to be about Star Wars?
Yeah, exactly.
I love
That
it.
sounds really good.
It does. It's a theme. Look, we could keep talking for forever. What did we miss though? What question or what topic did you want to cover real quick before we end this thing?
I mean, I feel like the thing that we missed was that in the hygiene room, in the operatory, we really do as individuals have many different opportunities to intervene. And it can be a small, like we talk about, like to move a mountain. You can't move it at once. You've got to go bucket by bucket. But you do not know if that one bucket, that one day you say that one thing to that one patient, if that really could be the bucket that stops someone from having a heart attack or a stroke, or changes the trajectory of their health. I would say, please feel empowered. Know that what you do makes more of a difference in someone's life than you think. For those of you out there feeling low, like you're on the hamster wheel all the time, find something, find a body part, whether it be cardiology or Alzheimer's or dementia or some dental thing that you can nerd out on yourself. Reignite that passion, but know that you're making a difference, and that something like this little molecule, this nitric oxide, can have so many downstream effects for the positive. And you can make changes by just talking to them about ways to change their routine, ways to enhance bacteria, healthy commensals, or eat a salad. If you can give us your kale salad recipe, that would be fantastic.
I love it. I'm sure people are going to have questions for you. If you're open to people asking you questions, what's a good way that they can contact you?
My email is hollymatic, HOLLYMATIC @gmail.com. That's another long story.
I don't know why that fits you so perfectly though.
Well, and I'm also over the moon hygiene on Instagram. So
Awesome. We'll put those in the show notes, listeners, if you can't remember that. But Holly, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this.
thank you, Andrew. This is awesome.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.